My name is Sarah, and I'm 28 years old. I work as a graphic designer in Austin, Texas, a city I absolutely adore. The live music scene, the food trucks, the quirky art everywhere, it's a place that fuels my creativity. I live in a small apartment downtown with a view of the Colorado River. It's nothing fancy, but it's mine, and it's filled with the things I love. Stacks of art books, vintage movie posters, and a ridiculously comfortable beanbag chair that's perfect for late-night sketching sessions. I've always been a bit of an introvert, happiest when I'm lost in my own little world, creating something new. My childhood wasn't always easy. I was never the most popular kid in school, and I definitely had my fair share of awkward phases. But I had a few close friends, and we stuck together like glue, navigating the treacherous waters of middle and high school. I always felt like I was on the outside looking in, never quite fitting in with the cool kids, but I was okay with that. I had my art, my friends, and my imagination. That was until Jessica entered my life. Jessica was everything I wasn't: confident, popular, and effortlessly stylish. She was the kind of girl who could walk into a room and instantly command everyone's attention. And for some reason, she decided to make my life a living hell. It started small, with subtle digs about my clothes or my hair. Then it escalated to blatant insults and public humiliation. She would make fun of my drawings, call me names in the hallways, and spread rumors about me behind my back. It was relentless and insidious, and it slowly chipped away at my self-esteem. High school became a daily torment. I dreaded going to school, knowing that Jessica and her cronies would be waiting to pounce. I tried to ignore her, but it was impossible. She seemed to be everywhere, always ready with a cruel remark or a mocking laugh. I felt like I was living in a constant state of anxiety, always on edge, waiting for the next attack. It was a dark time in my life, one that I tried to forget. I tried to tell the school authorities, but Jessica was a master manipulator and always managed to twist the story around, making me look like the problem. The teachers dismissed it as typical teenage drama and told me to just ignore her. Ignoring her was impossible. Her constant bullying made me feel isolated and alone. I started to doubt myself, my abilities, and my worth. I stopped drawing, stopped hanging out with my friends, and retreated into my shell. The vibrant, creative girl I once was slowly faded away, replaced by a shadow of fear and insecurity. I was trapped in a cycle of self-doubt and anxiety, and I didn't see any way out. It was like she had cast a dark cloud over my entire existence. The bullying continued throughout high school, and by the time graduation rolled around, I was a shell of my former self. I couldn't wait to escape that toxic environment and start fresh. I went away to college, determined to leave Jessica and the painful memories behind me. I threw myself into my studies, made new friends, and slowly started to heal. I rediscovered my passion for art and began to rebuild my confidence. College was a turning point for me, a chance to reinvent myself and leave the past behind. But even though I was miles away, Jessica's words still echoed in my mind, a constant reminder of my past insecurities. I knew that I could never truly escape her until I confronted her and put an end to her reign of terror. But that seemed like an impossible task, one that I wasn't sure I was strong enough to face. What I didn't know was fate would eventually bring us face to face again. Fast forward 10 years. I'm at a gallery opening in downtown Austin, showcasing some of my latest work. I'm feeling pretty good about myself. My career is thriving. I'm surrounded by friends, and I've finally managed to shake off most of the lingering effects of high school. I was chatting with a potential client, explaining the inspiration behind one of my pieces when I saw her. Across the room, standing by the bar, was Jessica. My heart skipped a beat, and my palms started to sweat. It was like a punch to the gut, a sudden reminder of all the pain and humiliation I had endured. She looked different, of course. Older, more polished, but there was no mistaking that smug look on her face. It was the same look she had worn when she was tormenting me in the hallways of high school. A wave of anger washed over me, a feeling I hadn't experienced in years. I wanted to run, to hide, to disappear. But I also knew that I couldn't. I had come too far to let her intimidate me again. For a moment, I froze, paralyzed by the shock of seeing her. I hadn't seen or heard from her since graduation, and I had almost convinced myself that she had ceased to exist. But there she was, as real and as infuriating as ever. I could feel my old insecurities creeping back, threatening to consume me. I wanted to lash out, to scream, to make her feel the pain that she had inflicted on me. But I knew that wouldn't solve anything. I had to stay calm, stay in control, and show her that I was no longer the vulnerable, insecure girl she used to bully. I took a deep breath, excused myself from the conversation, and started to walk towards her. With each step, my resolve grew stronger. I was no longer the victim. I was a successful, confident woman, and I wasn't going to let her ruin my night. As I approached her, I could see the surprise on her face. She clearly didn't expect to see me there, and for a brief moment, I saw a flicker of fear in her eyes. It was a small victory, but it was enough to fuel my determination. "Well, well, well," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "If it isn't Jessica, what a surprise to see you here." Her reaction caught me completely off guard. She looked genuinely surprised to see me, and then something even more unexpected happened. She seemed embarrassed. "Sarah," she said, her voice barely a whisper. "Wow, I didn't know you were an artist." Her eyes scanned the room, taking in my artwork, the crowd of people admiring it, and the confident demeanor I was trying so hard to project. "You've really done well for yourself," she added, a hint of admiration in her voice. I didn't know what to say. I had rehearsed this confrontation in my head a million times, imagining all the angry words I would unleash, the accusations I would hurl, the pain I would inflict. Now, faced with her unexpected display of humility, I was at a loss for words. Was this some kind of trick? Was she trying to manipulate me again? Or had she genuinely changed? "Yeah, well, I've been busy," I replied, trying to keep my tone neutral. "Life after high school, you know." I watched her closely, searching for any sign of her old self, any hint of the cruelty that had defined our past. But all I saw was a woman who seemed genuinely remorseful, perhaps even a little lost. She took a sip of her drink and looked down at her feet. I wanted to apologize," she said, her voice barely audible. "For everything, for how I treated you in high school. It was awful, and I'm so sorry." I was stunned. This was not the Jessica I remembered. The Jessica I knew would never apologize, would never admit to being wrong. This had to be a joke, surely. But the sincerity in her eyes seemed real. "I was going through a lot back then," she continued, "and I took it out on you. It was wrong, and I regret it more than you know." I waited for her to elaborate, waited for the other shoe to drop, but she just stood there, looking contrite and ashamed. I didn't know what to say. I had spent so many years holding on to my anger, nurturing my resentment and fantasizing about revenge. But now that I had the opportunity to confront her, to make her pay for her sins, I found myself feeling nothing. The anger had dissipated, replaced by a strange mix of confusion and disbelief. "I appreciate that, Jessica," I said finally. "It means a lot." Part of me wanted to forgive her, to move on, to finally put the past behind me. But another part of me couldn't let go of the pain, the humiliation, the years of suffering. It was a difficult situation to digest, and I couldn't help but be wary of her intentions. What could she possibly want from me after all this time? We talked for a few more minutes about our lives, our careers, our families. She told me that she was married and had 2 kids, that she worked as a real estate agent, and that she was finally happy. I told her about my art, my travels, my dreams. It was surreal, like we were living in some kind of alternate reality. 2 former enemies, now engaged in polite conversation, as if nothing had ever happened between us. As the conversation wound down, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. Her apology seemed genuine, but I still couldn't fully trust her. There was a nagging voice in the back of my head, warning me to be careful. "Well, it was nice seeing you, Jessica," I said, extending my hand. "I should probably get back to my guests." She smiled and shook my hand. "It was nice seeing you too, Sarah," she said. "And congratulations on your success, you deserve it." As I walked away, I couldn't help but wonder if I had made the right decision. Had I been too quick to forgive her? Was I being naive? Or had she truly changed, and was I finally ready to let go of the past? I decided to go back to my potential client and try to get back to enjoying my night, but I couldn't shake the feeling that I hadn't heard the last of Jessica. The encounter had stirred up too many old emotions, too many unresolved issues. I knew that I needed to process everything that had happened, to figure out how I really felt about her apology, and to decide what role, if any, she would play in my life going forward. But before I could do any of that, something even more unexpected happened. A few days later, I received a message from Jessica on social media. It was a link to a news article about a local charity that supported victims of bullying. "I thought you might be interested in this," she wrote. "It's a cause that's close to my heart. I clicked on the link and read the article. The charity provided counseling, support groups, and educational programs for young people who had been bullied. It was a worthy cause, and I could see why Jessica would be interested in it, given our history. I replied to her message, thanking her for sharing the link. "I'm glad you're supporting such a great cause," I wrote. "Bullying is a serious issue, and it's important to help those who have been affected by it." She responded almost immediately. "I know firsthand how damaging bullying can be," she wrote. "That's why I want to do everything I can to prevent it from happening to others." I was touched by her words. It seemed like she was genuinely committed to making amends for her past actions. But I still couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to the story. Why was she reaching out to me now, after all these years? What did she really want from me? A few days later, Jessica sent me another message. "I'm organizing a fundraising event for the anti-bullying charity," she wrote. "I was wondering if you would be willing to donate some of your artwork for the auction." My heart sank. This was it. This was the real reason she had reached out to me. She wasn't interested in making amends or supporting a good cause. She just wanted to exploit my talent for her own personal gain. I felt a surge of anger, the same anger I had felt in high school, the anger that had consumed me for so many years. I wanted to lash out at her, to tell her exactly what I thought of her, to expose her for the manipulative, self-serving person she really was. But then, I paused. I took a deep breath and tried to calm myself down. Was I being fair to her? Was I letting my past experiences cloud my judgment? Maybe she really was trying to do good, and maybe she really did need my help. I decided to give her the benefit of the doubt. "I'd be happy to donate a piece of my artwork for the auction," I wrote back. "It's a great cause and I'm happy to support it." She was thrilled. "Thank you so much, Sarah," she wrote. "You have no idea how much this means to me." We arranged to meet so I could deliver the artwork. As the day of the meeting approached, I started to feel anxious. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was walking into a trap, but I knew that I had to go through with it. I had made a commitment, and I wasn't going to back down. When I arrived at the location she had designated, I saw Jessica waiting outside. She greeted me with a warm smile and thanked me again for donating my artwork. As we walked inside, I couldn't help but notice that the place was eerily quiet. There were no other people around, and the building seemed deserted. I started to feel uneasy. "Where is everyone?" I asked. "I thought this was a fundraising event." Jessica's smile faltered. "There's been a slight change of plans," she said. "I wanted to talk to you alone before the event started." My heart sank. I knew it. This was a trap. "What's going on, Jessica?" I asked, my voice trembling slightly. "What do you really want?" She sighed and led me to a small, windowless room. The room was bare except for a table and 2 chairs. It felt cold and sterile, like a prison cell. We sat down at the table, facing each other. The tension in the room was palpable. "I need your help, Sarah," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I'm in trouble." I stared at her in disbelief. "Trouble?" I said. "What kind of trouble?" She hesitated for a moment, then took a deep breath and began to tell her story. As she spoke, I learned the truth about her life, her struggles, and the secrets she had been hiding for so many years. The truth was more shocking than I could have ever imagined. It turned out that Jessica's perfect life was a facade. Her marriage was falling apart, her business was failing, and she was deeply in debt. She had been living beyond her means for years, trying to maintain the image of success and wealth that she thought everyone expected of her. But now, the house of cards was collapsing, and she was desperate for a way out. The anti-bullying charity was a sham. She had created it as a way to raise money to pay off her debts. She had never intended to donate any of the funds to the cause. It was all a lie, a desperate attempt to save herself from financial ruin. "I know what I did was wrong," she said, tears streaming down her face. "But I didn't know what else to do. I was desperate." I was stunned. I couldn't believe that she would stoop so low. But as I listened to her story, I started to feel a flicker of sympathy. I knew what it was like to feel trapped, to feel like there was no way out. I had been there myself in high school when Jessica was tormenting me. I had felt the same desperation, the same hopelessness. "Why are you telling me this, Jessica?" I asked. "Why did you bring me here?" She looked me in the eye, her expression pleading. "Because you're the only one who can help me," she said. "You're the only one who knows what I'm capable of. You're the only one who understands." She explained that she needed my help to pull off her scheme. She wanted me to use my artistic talents to create fake documents, fake invoices, and fake testimonials to convince donors that the charity was legitimate. She needed me to help her deceive people, to exploit their generosity, to steal their money. I was horrified. "I can't do that, Jessica," I said. I would never do anything like that. It's wrong. She begged me, pleaded with me, tried to guilt me into helping her. She reminded me of all the things she had done for me in the past, all the times she had stood up for me, all the times she had made me feel good about myself. But I wasn't buying it. I knew that she was just trying to manipulate me, to use me for her own selfish purposes. I stood up and started to walk towards the door. "I'm leaving, Jessica," I said. "I want nothing to do with this." She grabbed my arm, her grip tight and desperate. "Please, Sarah," she said. "Don't do this to me. You're my only hope." I looked at her, at the desperation in her eyes, at the tears streaming down her face, and for a moment I hesitated. Part of me wanted to help her, to save her from herself, but another part of me knew that I couldn't. I couldn't condone her actions, I couldn't enable her behavior, and I couldn't betray my own values. I gently removed her hand from my arm. "I'm sorry, Jessica," I said. "I can't help you. You need to turn yourself in and face the consequences of your actions." She stared at me in disbelief, her eyes filled with anger and resentment. "You're going to let me go to prison," she said. "After everything I've done for you." "You did this to yourself, Jessica," I said. "You made your own choices and now you have to live with them." I turned and walked out of the room, leaving her alone in her misery. As I walked away, I felt a sense of relief, but also a sense of sadness. I was relieved that I had made the right decision, that I had stood up for what was right. But I was also sad that Jessica had fallen so far, that she had destroyed her own life. I went straight to the police and told them everything. I explained Jessica's scheme, her fake charity, and her plans to defraud donors. The police were shocked, but they took my story seriously. They launched an investigation, and within a few days they had gathered enough evidence to arrest Jessica. She was charged with multiple counts of fraud, embezzlement, and money laundering. Her assets were frozen, her reputation was ruined, and she was facing a long prison sentence. As I watched the news reports about Jessica's arrest, I couldn't help but feel a sense of satisfaction. She had finally been brought to justice. She had finally been held accountable for her actions. But I also felt a sense of emptiness. Her downfall didn't bring me the closure I had hoped for. It didn't erase the pain of the past, and it didn't make me feel any better about myself. I realized that true revenge wasn't about punishing others. It was about healing myself. It was about letting go of the anger and resentment and moving on with my life. It was about forgiving myself for the mistakes I had made and embracing the person I had become. I decided to focus on my art, my friends, and my own personal growth. I started volunteering at a local anti-bullying organization, sharing my story with young people who had been affected by bullying. I wanted to show them that they weren't alone, that they could overcome their challenges, and that they could create a better future for themselves. A few months later, I received a letter from Jessica. She was in prison awaiting trial. She wrote to apologize for everything she had done to me, for the pain she had caused, and for the lies she had told. She admitted that she had been wrong, that she had made terrible choices, and that she deserved to be punished. She also thanked me for turning her in. She said that it was the best thing that could have happened to her, that it had forced her to confront her demons, and that it had given her a chance to start over. I was surprised by her honesty and her remorse. It seemed like she had finally learned her lesson. I wrote back to her, offering my forgiveness and my support. I told her that I hoped she could find peace and healing in prison, and that I would be there for her when she got out. I didn't expect her to ever be a part of my life again, but I wanted her to know that I had forgiven her and that I wished her well. I thought that was the end of the story, but I was wrong. There was one more twist to come, a final revelation that would change everything. Years later, after Jessica had served her time and was released from prison, I received an unexpected phone call. It was Jessica. She had turned her life around. She had started a new business, a nonprofit organization that provided support and resources for victims of bullying and financial fraud. She had become a passionate advocate for justice and accountability. She asked if we could meet. I was hesitant but curious. I agreed to have coffee with her. When I saw her, I was struck by how different she looked. She was humble, kind, and genuinely remorseful. She told me about her work, her struggles, and her commitment to making a positive difference in the world. She had learned from her mistakes, and she was determined to use her experiences to help others. As we talked, I realized that she had truly changed. She wasn't the same person who had tormented me in high school or who had tried to exploit me for her own gain. She had become a better person, a stronger person, a more compassionate person. I was impressed by her transformation, and I was inspired by her dedication. We became friends. We worked together on various projects, supporting victims of bullying and fraud. We shared our stories, our struggles, and our hopes for the future. We learned from each other, and we grew together. Over time, I realized that Jessica's redemption had brought me a sense of closure that I had never thought possible. It had taught me that people can change, that forgiveness is possible, and that even the darkest of pasts can be overcome. The final twist. Jessica helped me realize something profound about myself. She pointed out that my art, the very thing she had once mocked, was now helping countless people. My work, often inspired by my own struggles, resonated with others who had experienced pain and trauma. I had turned my pain into something beautiful, something meaningful, something that could heal and inspire. She helped me see that my revenge wasn't about punishing Jessica. It was about becoming the best version of myself, about using my talents to make a positive impact on the world. And in the end, that was the most satisfying revenge of all. I wasn't expecting to befriend my former tormentor, but life rarely goes according to plan. Over the years, Jessica and I built a strong bond, a testament to the power of redemption and forgiveness. We traveled to schools and community centers, sharing our story and offering hope to those who were struggling. We became advocates for kindness, empathy, and understanding. One day, Jessica approached me with a new idea. She wanted to create a scholarship fund for aspiring artists who had been affected by bullying. She knew how much my art had helped me heal, and she wanted to provide that same opportunity for others. I was deeply touched by her proposal. It was a beautiful way to honor our past and to create a brighter future. We worked tirelessly to raise money for the scholarship fund. We organized art auctions, concerts, and charity events. We reached out to our friends, our families, and our communities. And slowly but surely, we started to see results. The scholarship fund grew, and we were able to help more and more young artists pursue their dreams. Seeing the joy and gratitude in their eyes was incredibly rewarding. It was a reminder that even the darkest of experiences can be transformed into something positive. One year, we decided to hold the scholarship awards ceremony at the same high school where Jessica had once bullied me. It was a symbolic gesture, a way to show how far we had come. As I stood on the stage, looking out at the crowd of students, teachers, and parents, I felt a wave of emotion wash over me. I thought about the girl I used to be, the girl who had been filled with fear and insecurity. And I thought about the woman I had become, the woman who had found strength and resilience in the face of adversity. Jessica stood beside me, beaming with pride. We had come full circle. We had transformed our pain into purpose, and we had created a legacy of hope and healing. As I spoke to the audience, I shared my story of bullying, forgiveness, and redemption. I talked about the power of art to heal, to inspire, and to transform, and I encouraged everyone to choose kindness, empathy, and understanding. When I finished speaking, the audience erupted in applause. I looked at Jessica, and she smiled at me, her eyes filled with tears. We had done it. We had turned our past into something beautiful. We had created a future filled with hope, and we had finally found peace. The experience taught me that revenge, in its purest form, isn't about inflicting pain on others. It's about overcoming your own pain, about becoming the best version of yourself, and about using your experiences to make a positive impact on the world. And sometimes, the greatest revenge is forgiveness. Forgiving others and forgiving yourself can be the most liberating and empowering act of all. It allows you to let go of the past, to embrace the present, and to create a future filled with hope, joy, and purpose. And that, I realized, is the ultimate triumph. It's the victory that truly matters. It's the revenge that sets you free. My journey with Jessica was a testament to the human capacity for change, for forgiveness, and for love. It was a reminder that even the most unlikely of friendships can blossom from the ashes of the past. And it was a lesson in the power of redemption, the power of healing, and the power of turning pain into purpose. So if you're struggling with your own past, if you're holding on to anger and resentment, I encourage you to let go. Forgive those who have wronged you and forgive yourself for the mistakes you have made. Embrace the present and create a future filled with hope, joy, and purpose. Because revenge, in its truest form, is about becoming the best version of yourself. It's about turning your pain into power. And it's about creating a world where kindness, empathy, and understanding prevail. And that's a revenge worth fighting for. The anti-bullying work became my life's purpose, a way to honor the pain I had endured and to help others navigate their own struggles. It was fulfilling, but I still carried a nagging feeling, a sense that something was missing. I couldn't quite put my finger on it. Maybe it was the lingering effects of my past, the fear that Jessica's betrayal would somehow resurface. Or maybe it was something else entirely, a new challenge waiting just around the corner. Whatever it was, I knew that I couldn't rest on my laurels. I needed to keep pushing forward, to keep growing, and to keep striving to make a positive impact on the world. My apartment became a sanctuary, a place where I could escape the pressures of my work and reconnect with my creativity. I spent hours sketching, painting, and experimenting with new techniques. Art had always been my refuge, a way to express my emotions and to make sense of the world around me. I started to incorporate my experiences with bullying and forgiveness into my art, creating pieces that were both powerful and poignant. My work began to attract attention, and I was invited to showcase my art at galleries and exhibitions around the country. It was an incredible opportunity to share my story with a wider audience and to inspire others to overcome their own challenges. One day, I received an email from a film producer who was interested in making a documentary about my life and my work with Jessica. He had been following our story for years, and he believed that it could have a profound impact on viewers. I was hesitant at first. The idea of sharing my most personal experiences on film was daunting, but after talking to Jessica, I decided to go for it. We both felt that the documentary could be a powerful tool for raising awareness about bullying and for promoting forgiveness and redemption. The filming process was intense and emotional. We spent hours talking to the director, the crew, and the interviewers, reliving our past traumas and sharing our hopes for the future. It was exhausting, but also cathartic. It forced me to confront my demons and to heal from wounds I didn't even know I had. As the documentary neared completion, I started to feel a sense of anticipation and anxiety. I knew that it would be seen by millions of people around the world, and I worried about how they would react to my story. Would they understand my choices? Would they judge me for my past? Would they be inspired by my journey? The documentary premiered at a prestigious film festival, and it was met with rave reviews. Critics praised its honesty, its emotional depth, and its powerful message of hope. Audiences were moved by my story, and many reached out to me to share their own experiences with bullying and forgiveness. The documentary became a sensation, winning numerous awards and accolades. It was shown in schools, community centers, and churches around the world, sparking conversations about bullying, empathy, and redemption. It was an incredible feeling to know that my story was making a difference in so many lives. But amidst all the success and recognition, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was still missing. I had achieved my goals, I had found my purpose, and I had made peace with my past. But I still felt a void, a longing for something more. One evening, as I was sitting in my apartment, sketching in my beanbag chair, I received a phone call from a woman I had never met. Her name was Emily, and she was a social worker who worked with troubled youth. She had seen the documentary, and she was deeply moved by my story. She told me that she had a client who was struggling with bullying and self-esteem issues, and she thought that I might be able to help her. I was hesitant at first. I was already stretched thin with my work and my travel schedule, but something about Emily's voice, her genuine concern for her client, resonated with me. I decided to meet with her and see if I could make a difference. Next day, I met with Emily and her client, a 15-year-old girl named Chloe. Chloe was shy, withdrawn, and deeply insecure. She had been bullied relentlessly at school, and she had lost all hope for the future. As I listened to Chloe's story, I felt a wave of empathy wash over me. I knew exactly what she was going through. I had been there myself years ago when Jessica was making my life a living hell. I spent hours talking to Chloe, sharing my own experiences with bullying and forgiveness. I told her that she wasn't alone, that she was strong, and that she could overcome her challenges. I encouraged her to express her emotions through art, to find her voice, and to stand up for herself. Over the next few weeks, I worked closely with Chloe, helping her to build her confidence and to find her passion. I taught her how to sketch, paint, and sculpt. I showed her how to use art to express her feelings and to heal from her wounds. Slowly but surely, Chloe began to blossom. She started to stand up to her bullies, to make new friends, and to excel in her studies. She discovered a talent for art, and she began to create beautiful and powerful pieces that reflected her own journey of healing. Seeing Chloe's transformation was incredibly rewarding. It reminded me of the power of art to heal, to inspire, and to transform. It also gave me a new sense of purpose. I realized that my work wasn't just about sharing my story with the world. It was about helping others to find their own voices, to overcome their own challenges, and to create a brighter future for themselves. I started to volunteer more of my time to working with troubled youth. I organized art workshops, mentoring programs, and support groups. I wanted to create a safe and supportive environment where young people could express themselves, heal from their wounds, and build their confidence. My work with troubled youth became my passion. It gave me a sense of fulfillment that I had never experienced before. It was a way to honor my past, to make a difference in the present, and to create a better future for generations to come. But just when I thought I had found my true calling, something unexpected happened that would challenge me in ways I never could have imagined. One day, I received a phone call from a lawyer. He informed me that my estranged father had passed away and that I was the sole beneficiary of his estate. I was shocked. I hadn't spoken to my father in over 10 years. We had a difficult relationship, marked by conflict and resentment. I had always felt like he didn't understand me, that he didn't support my dreams, and that he didn't care about my happiness. I had tried to reconcile with him over the years, but he had always pushed me away. I had eventually given up, accepting that we would never have a close relationship. Now he was gone, and he had left me everything he owned. I didn't know what to do. I was overwhelmed with emotions, sadness, anger, confusion, and disbelief. I couldn't understand why he had left me his estate. We had been estranged for so long. Why would he suddenly decide to leave me everything? I decided to travel to my hometown to deal with my father's affairs. It was a small town in rural Texas, far removed from the vibrant art scene of Austin. As I drove through the familiar streets, I was flooded with memories of my childhood. I remembered the good times and the bad times, the joys and the sorrows, the triumphs and the failures. I arrived at my father's house, a modest bungalow on the outskirts of town. It was in disrepair, overgrown with weeds and filled with dust. It was clear that he hadn't taken care of it in years. As I walked through the house, I was struck by how empty it felt. There were few personal belongings, no photographs, no mementos. It was as if he had been living in a shell, detached from the world and from his own emotions. I found a box of old letters and photographs in the attic. As I sifted through them, I began to piece together a picture of my father's life. I learned about his dreams, his struggles, and his regrets. I discovered that he had always loved me, even though he had a hard time expressing it. He had been proud of my accomplishments, even though he had never said so. He had wanted to reconcile with me, but he had been too stubborn, too afraid to admit that he was wrong. As I read the letters and looked at the photographs, I started to understand my father in a new light. I realized that he wasn't the cold, distant man I had always thought he was. He was a flawed human being just like me. He had made mistakes, he had suffered losses, and he had carried burdens that I couldn't even imagine. I felt a wave of compassion wash over me. I realized that I had been too quick to judge him, too quick to hold on to my anger and resentment. I had never really tried to understand him, to see the world from his perspective. Now it was too late. He was gone, and I would never have the chance to tell him that I loved him, that I forgave him, and that I understood. As I was cleaning out the house, I found a hidden room in the basement. It was a small, windowless space filled with art supplies, canvases, paints, brushes, and sculptures. I was surprised. I didn't know that my father had been an artist. As I examined the artwork, I was struck by its beauty and its emotional depth. His art was raw, honest, and deeply personal. It reflected his struggles, his hopes, and his dreams. I realized that art was his way of expressing himself, his way of communicating his feelings, his way of connecting with the world. I had inherited my artistic talent from him. It was in my blood. It was a part of who I was. And he had never even known it. I decided to use my inheritance to create a foundation in my father's name. The foundation would provide scholarships for aspiring artists from low-income backgrounds. It would also support art programs in underserved communities. It would be a way to honor my father's memory and to continue his legacy of artistic expression. The foundation became a success, helping countless young artists to pursue their dreams. It gave me a sense of purpose and fulfillment. It was a way to heal from the pain of my past and to create a brighter future for others. As I reflected on my journey, I realized that life is full of unexpected twists and turns. It's full of challenges and opportunities, of joys and sorrows, of triumphs and failures. But it's also full of hope, of love, and of the possibility of redemption. And sometimes, the greatest revenge is simply living a life filled with purpose, passion, and compassion. It's about turning your pain into power, about using your experiences to make a positive impact on the world, and about inspiring others to do the same. But the story doesn't end there. A new chapter was about to begin, one that would test my resilience and my faith in ways I never could have anticipated.